Thanks to the organisers. I'm going to get straight into this talk because there's quite a bit to get through. As it mentioned, I'm presenting this on behalf of an implementation committee that's bookended by the GRDC and DAFWA, who take this issue of national RD&E strategy very seriously. So the outline of my talk is to give you a bit of a discussion about what the grains industry strategy is, and then to flesh it out with some examples of how it's being applied in some priority areas. So what is it? It came out in December 2010, so we've only been running it for about 2 years, and we've got a long way to go. But thanks. It's basically a manual or the Bible on how state departments, CSIRO, universities and GRDC will work together with industry to improve coordination and priority setting and to get better industry outcomes. As I say, GRDC and DAFWA are the leaders of this strategy. If you think about departments of agriculture, they were the bastions of where all the R&D was done. They were all established more than 100 years ago, and a lot of things have changed. Once they were self-sufficient and independent and had expertise that cut across all fields, and that was a pretty good strategy for its time. But in the 21st century, it's quite clear that we are now in a globally connected R&D environment, and the primary industries, the Standing Committee on Primary Industries, the Ministerial Council, came up with a concept in 2008 that they believed that research was something that could be conducted in the national context, development at the regional level and extension local. Now that's a bit of an oversimplification, but it does ring quite true. So there are 12 of these sector strategies for primary industries in Australia, and there's 8 cross-sector strategies. For example, there's a dairy strategy that's led by Dairy Australia and the Victorian Department, and as I mentioned, the grain strategy, which is led by GRDC and DAFWA. Why do we need it? I'm going to go through a few elements here of things like the R&D&E environment has changed dramatically. It's quite clear that there is and will be continuing downward pressure on public funding. It doesn't give any state department or government director general any pleasure to think that he may have less money to invest in R&D, but that is likely to be a continuing scenario that we have to deal with. There's also an ageing workforce and infrastructure right around the country, and it's something that, again, needs to be tackled systematically. But perhaps more important than all of that is the globalisation of new technology and information delivery. And we've heard a bit of it this morning with the iPad app, using Google, consultants, precision ag, biotech, ag chem. These technologies aren't homegrown in Australia or in Western Australia, and they're critical to the future profitability of your business. We also thought, as a GRDC, State Department, university community, that we were doing a reasonably good job. But really these were the client perceptions when we started to look into this. We were seen to be running in state-based RD&E silos. There was almost a chasm of different approaches and ways of looking at the world between the public and private sector that were delivering R&D. We were duplicating planning and industry engagement. There was plenty of examples where a state department would go out and consult with a set of growers, only to find a few weeks later GRDC or someone else was going around asking the same sets of questions. And we're also in an era of researcher-driven projects and locked into this cycle of incremental improvement. What the clients want is a national RD&E approach. They want effective public-private partnerships. They want shared planning with industry and not to duplicate it, want to get on with it. And they want industry-led and industry-focused projects. And if we're going to transform the industry to where we're going to need to be profitable in 2025 and beyond, we're going to have some step change transformation of technologies. So that was the RD&E environment. Let's have a look at the business environment. I'm telling you nothing you don't already know, but it's the context to how you prioritise your R&D. Market deregulation and price volatility have increased in recent years, alongside that greater seasonal variation. Growers' total factor productivity has declined. It's increasing farm debt. They're all downsides. There's a big upside with the Asian market opportunity, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that as we go on. But even with the upside of the increased Asian market opportunity, we've got increased competition from low-cost producing countries in the Black Sea and South America that we've got to contend with. I think this graph of total factor productivity focused the committee that was putting this R&D strategy more than anything else, because if we were doing such a darn good job, why had the apparent increases through the 80s and 90s flattened off so dramatically? And it's important to realise that this is some good work that ABARES have done, that there's a time lag of about 20 years for the impact of R&D investment to show up in agricultural productivity. So the decisions we're making today in where we're investing are going to have a big impact on our industry position in many years to come. Now, Ross Kingwell will be giving a talk later today or tomorrow where he's going to look at whether actually total factor productivity is the best thing we should be measuring. It's probably more likely business profitability is the thing we should be focusing on as a measure, but they're all interrelated. The Asian opportunity is real. It's not just hype, but actually latching on and capturing it will be quite challenging. And really the issue is it's about urbanisation. And with urbanisation is coming increased disposable incomes of a very large middle class in Asia. And also important for us in the grains industry is to realise that there's a westernisation of food tastes as well as waistlines. What's happening is rice consumption in Asia is declining per capita, and wheat, baked goods, breads, cakes, biscuits is going up. That's a real opportunity for us. And also the slide there which shows the FAO food price index is quite interesting in the sense that whilst the Asian century and expansion is not solely responsible for these blips, it is quite interesting to consider that if the Aussie dollar wasn't quite as high as it was now, we would be receiving absolutely record prices for cereals that have come off and spiked up off a very low baseline. Great opportunity for us when things... we've got to be ready to pounce when that Aussie dollar comes back, and it will at some stage. Recently, the department sponsored bringing a fellow called Angus Taylor over from Port Jackson Partners, and we had a couple of sessions with industry earlier, just before Christmas. And he did a discussion paper on positioning Australia to seize the Asian opportunity. And I've cut it down to his report to about 6 key messages that he thought Australia needed. And this wasn't just the grains industry, this was the whole agricultural sector, and he made commentary on the New Zealand situation as well. But if you look at these, sourcing capital and increasing investment, attracting skilled people, focusing R&D, identifying and pursuing the right opportunities, closing farm performance gaps, production and profit, creating contestable supply chains aligned with the interests of the growers and targeting key markets. Now, I've highlighted in yellow the ones that are closely related to the sort of R&D and E that we're commonly involved with people in the room, but we actually do need to apply some RD&E to the other points as well, and certainly we'll be hearing about AGIC targeting key markets and supply chain work, and we need to continue to invest in fact research better ways to attract skilled people and source capital. And I was reflecting on this word focus. We use it a lot in R&D, we use it in our organisation a lot. How can we get focused? How are we going to focus on this problem? And usually when you think of focus, you think of a magnifying glass or a lens that brings something into some sort of sharp focus. But I was thinking about this, and I think, what all this is really doing is taking a whole lot of parallel, similar material, light coming in from the left there, and yeah, it magnifies it down a bit. But at the risk of infringing some copyright from Pink Floyd, I was looking at this poster on my daughter's bedroom wall the other day, and I thought about it, and I thought, if I turn that around the other way, and I'm going to call this the reverse prism. And with the reverse prism, we're going to take those components, those different science disciplines, but importantly, the different partners and public and private sector players that we're going to push into this, push through the reverse prism to give us some real sharp goal illumination. And I think this is the theme that runs through the National RD&E strategy that's really important, strategic partnering. So what are some of the critical elements to the strategy? The first thing we've done is we've conducted a bit of an audit. We did one 2 years ago, we're now redoing again, of the resources and the commitments from the sort of participants. These are state departments, CSIRO, universities, and we'd like to do the private sector as well, but we're challenged by some methodologies to do that. And what this is about is defining the roles for people and facilities. Who's making a commitment to stay in a certain area for a long time? We're also looking at where should things be conducted. So we're planning to develop a network of national centres of research capacity, and this is where you park your really expensive infrastructure, the stuff that you don't want and the country can't afford to have duplicated everywhere. A lot of the molecular biology stuff, for example. But then we need to arc up these regional networks of applied RD&E capacity to create regional critical mass, because it's very important that we continue to have a strong presence of agronomic experts in the region. Priority setting. Been a big shift in the way GRDC is harvesting its information using these regional crop solution groups, and DAFWA in Western Australia is partnering with that process as well. We've got this National RD&E Strategy Committee, and we've got GRDC panels. Have we optimised how they work? And then the delivery mechanisms. And these are the things that power the strategy. So these are national programs, regional projects, and short-term local projects. The priority setting process, and there's GRDC, I couldn't find it, I couldn't scan it in last night when I was looking for it. There's a nice funnel diagram that Steve Thomas from GRDC's created in it was in an insert to one of the ground cover issues recently, where you talk about harvesting a whole lot of ideas from industry and stakeholders. But you've got to match that up with the knowledge of where the science, technology and innovation opportunities really are. And then increasingly we've got to put a forensic economic analysis and impact analysis over the top of that to make sure that these things really are the priorities that we want to look at. And often, is it an RD&E activity required, or is there some other sort of industry or government policy or regulatory response? We also have to assess the capacity available to respond. And then something that I think we can get a lot better at in partnership is assessing the probability of success. And from that you design projects and evaluate projects. And we've got to get better. Everyone that's been involved in R&D, and there's a lot of you in this room, knows that science doesn't always, and R&D doesn't always go on a linear track and turn out exactly. You tick off the GRDC milestones and it goes to plan. We've got to get much better at re-evaluating and reshifting and refocusing projects while they're going on, not just waiting to the end of the project and saying, oh, that one didn't work out too well, perhaps we shouldn't have invested quite so much in that. There are smarter ways to work with the researchers and the panels and people that oversee these things to redesign projects midstream to make sure we're getting the impact that we need. So from the National RD&E Strategy document, there's some high-level priorities that came about from pretty much just pulling together the words out of strategic plans from state governments, federal governments, GRDC, industry, and it pretty much comes down to these four output streams, as we call them. You know, we need improved varieties, we need improved practices, we need market competitiveness because we're such an export-focused industry, particularly in this state, and we need sector capability. I mentioned the National Centres of Research Capability, and there's 5 of these: AGIC, the Waite Campus in Adelaide, AgriBio, CSRO and QAFI in Brisbane. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. And I'm not going to tell, and this is just a snapshot of the sort of stuff that happens there for those of you that don't know. At the Waite Campus in South Australia, you've got the University of Adelaide, you've got SARDI, you've got the ACPFG, and CSRO also have a presence on that campus. I guess the unique thing from the grains industry point of view is the heavy-duty, heavy-hitting work that's happening at the Australian Centre for Plant Functional Genomics, which is co-funded by the ARC and GRDC. What's that working on? It's working primarily on drought tolerance, salinity tolerance, and improving nutrient use efficiency and some other nutrients as well. And it's got technology there in genome composition, gene expression, etc. We consider CSRO's facilities at Black Mountain a National Centre of Research Excellence for grains. And this isn't all that it does, but again, heavily pre-breeding focused. Some very interesting and promising investments in GM oilseeds, using safflower as a biofactory to produce renewable and sustainable plant oils. It's doing some internationally, like the ACPFG and AgriBio, doing some internationally significant work on GM wheat, looking at production and quality traits. It also hosts the Rust molecular pathology work that helps power the Sydney University program, and it's got some pretty interesting gene silencing technology, which is of course very similar to the RNAi technology we've been hearing about over the last few weeks. AgriBio in Victoria is a partnership between the Victorian Government and La Trobe University. Again, strong molecular biology focus in pre-breeding and genetic technologies. And I think the fact that I've put up 3 centres dealing with this high-level pre-breeding activity means to me, as I look forward, I think those 3 centres are going to need to stake out their territory and specialise a bit if they're going to maintain impact and deliver us the best benefit they can for the grains industry. But at AgriBio, they house the Pulse Molecular Marker program for the country. They do have a SNP genome resource for the Australian wheat industry, and the fast map-based cloning of genes and identification of novel alleles is a capacity that they have that is available to be exploited by other pre-breeders and commercial breeding companies. QAFI in Queensland is an alliance between the Queensland Government and the University of Queensland. It actually does a lot of work in tropical fruit and vegetables and horticulture as well, but it is a significant player and resource for improved crop and management systems. Its focus areas are around sorghum, particularly in summer legumes, but it still does a significant amount of wheat and barley work. And I've highlighted the simulation modelling work that is done at that site, and there's some strong partnerships between this group and CSRO as well that are a national capability that's important for us. The recently formed Australian Export Grains Innovation Centre, which is a public company limited by guarantee with the 2 members, DAFWA and GRDC. We're very proud of this new centre that was officially launched, I think it was the 1st of November last year. It's about market intelligence, market requirements and opportunities, and it's R&D in export grain quality, the genetics behind that and processing technologies. And AGIC is one of the starting off projects that's putting a lot of resources into, which also picks up some research from Cyro and Murdoch, is to optimise the functionality and value of medium protein APW wheats for premium paying end users. And some of you will have heard of the work that Shamana Bell and others are doing in that area that's incredibly promising, with potentially enabling us to chase some significant price premiums in the marketplace. I talked about the national research programs. These are the things that really power the strategy, and there's a number of these. These are just a few well-known examples. The Australian Cereal Rust Control Program. You all know about the Australian Herbicide Resistance Initiative. You've just been hearing about it. Pulse Breeding Australia, the National Variety Testing Program, Managing Climate Variability Program, National Invertebrate Pest Initiative, Australian Wheat and Barley Molecular Marker Program, Stored Grain Protection and Hygiene. These are just some of the national programs that have multiple organisations that contribute to a GRDC funded project. There are some new and proposed or expanding examples that are in the pipeline. There's one on better wheat quality. Necrotrophic fungal pathogens work is looking to expand and reassess where it's going. We're looking at a high rainfall cropping systems initiative. A national frost program's recently kicked in, and even soil acidity is now being looked at in the national context. And the Victorian Government and GRDC have just announced a major investment in crop genetic resources at Horsham. So very quickly, what are some of these programs look like? This is the Australian Cereal Rust Program. Sydney University leads this one, with CSIRO and State Departments sort of supporting that as well. And so you can see that Manjimup has a striped rust nursery as an outreach activity from this program that's made available to private wheat breeding companies to assess their material. Regional crop solution groups are a new initiative. They've only recently cranked up around the country. They're about getting a better connection of local growers and agribusiness with the R&D community. And this is where we can see more in-depth analysis of local issues and within-season responses to address some short-term issues, as well as flagging some longer-term priority issues that would be dealt with in a national context. So about 100 growers, consultants and agronomists are involved in these around the country, and they feed their results back into GRDC's new regional grower services managers in the region. And so in our region it's Darren Hughes. So let's just have a look at the Western Australian regional crop solution groups. They have been established pretty much on the lines of the port zones. So we've got Cameron Weeks looking after the northern zone, and we've got Julianne and Sally looking after groups in the high rainfall, low rainfall Kwinana zones, the Great Southern or the Albany Port Zone, and Esperance. And I think what we need to do together collectively, and a lot of the players that are in this room, DAFWA, with its network of regional offices, managed environment facilities, the new gens for new environment facilities, and our mobile research support units, we've got to look at where we're going to place that to support the industry out to 2025 and beyond. And we need to do that very cognizant of where the growers are, where the AAAC consultants are based, where's agribusiness and merchandise providers, where are the commercial R&D providers, and the education and training opportunities. What you're finding in the Eastern Australia now, I've put them down on that bottom right-hand corner, a consolidation of grains R&D critical mass at a much smaller number of regional hubs. So places like Toowoomba, Narrabri, Tamworth, Wagga, Horsham are now becoming quite significant centres. In Western Australia, we're a bit more dispersed than that, and we need to start having some conversations about how to optimise that into the future, and DAFWA will be working very closely with a lot of you to try and pull that off. So the Western Region RD&E priorities have been fed up through the regional crop solution groups. Here's a list of them. It's probably not an exclusive list, but it's got frost, it's got non-wetting soils, spatial data, fertility and productivity of soils long term, managing weeds and herbicide resistance, profitable rotations and legume options, business profit drivers and skills to manage financial risk, nitrogen status and response relationships, etc. And I've put a little smiley face next to the fact that I was able to identify a talk that's on the Crop Updates program that's at least delivering or presenting in that area. How long, mate? 4 minutes. Frost, we heard Keith mention that GRDC are making a major investment in frost, and it's a national program with us contributing in Merredin. I talked about strong economic analysis to support these things. This was some work that DAFRA did a few years ago that puts these soil constraint factors in order, and it's put acidity at the top of the list in terms of the dollars opportunity lost. And you're going to hear from Chris Gazy at this Crop Updates program. Soil acidity isn't something that perhaps needs a lot of R&D, it's mainly an extension activity, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done because we're still not putting enough lime out to manage that problem. Rotations was on the list. We do a lot of rotations work in Western Australia, but we also pick up on work that's being done at Sydney University and with the New South Wales Department on Crown Rut. We play a link role in that area. I want to get this in before they pull the plug on me. This is a challenge. As I was putting this talk together and I was thinking about rotations, this is a challenge to breeders, agronomists and pathologists. Could we tighten this canola rotation in Western Australia? We would make a lot more money for a lot more people if we could grow, if we weren't worried about breakdown of resistance to blackleg and sclerotinia problems. I think there's an opportunity there for some significant discussion. We heard a bit about Michael Fells and the iPad app. You're going to hear a lot about the changing face of extension, and some good work's being done by the Victorian Department and GRDC as part of this national strategy to look at some of these models. And have a go at Google this www.extension.org and have a look at that. That's how they're handling it in the United States. I haven't got time to go through it now, nor have I got time really to go through the greater opportunity we've got to make an ag tech grains industry where we take some of the sophisticated models that we've got in terms of crop growth, drought, stress, crop disease models, and actually feed them live into your iPad linked up to live weather and soil moisture data feeds. There's a huge opportunity here, and DAF is already starting to explore some data sharing standards with industry on this. I was asked to give 3 key messages. To sum up, I reckon the National RD&E strategy should serve Western Australia very well. It will connect us to the best skills nationally and internationally. We have to seek a balanced portfolio of short, medium and long-term investment, given the lag time for this technology to come through to your paddock. And all the work we do should be aimed to boost your profitability and asset value, and I believe we can do that. And the reverse prism, smart partnering to do it better. So how do you feed into this thing? The National RD&E Committee has got representatives from South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, CSIRO, DAF in Canberra, 3 university representatives and 3 growers, 3 grain producers Australia in the North, Southern and West region. We have the National Agribusiness Reference Group and Grain Trade Australia sitting around the table, and it's, as I said, it's bookended by GRDC and DAFWA. The Executive Officer is Kerry Regan, and you can also contact these people via your GRDC processes as well. So thank you very much.